Fighting games have been one of the most popular video game genres since the early mid-90s with the release of Street Fighter 2. However, despite the popularity of the genre, many people stray away from these games for various reasons. As someone who grew up playing these games casually, I've always found the genre to be fun. From the games like the Dragon Ball Z Budokai series to even traditional 2D fighters like Mortal Kombat. As I grew older, I found myself enjoying the genre more and more to the point that it's probably my most played video game genre of all time. Just to give you a glimpse of how much I played this genre, I'll give you a quick look at my Steam library. One of my most favorite fighting games of all time is Dragon Ball FighterZ, and I currently have 250 hours clocked in on PC. You might think that's not a lot of hours, but let me tell you, I've actually bought this game more than once. I have this game on PS4 and Switch with both 100 hours and more put into it. I've played this game since launch and I still do to this day. I also have games like BlazBlue Central Fiction with almost 300 hours. Heck, I'm not even a big fan of Street Fighter V's slower gameplay, yet I still have almost 300 hours in both PC and PS4. Oh, and don't get me started on Smash Ultimate. If you've seen previous videos of mine, you know I've put tons and tons of time into that game with how much videos I put out. Even if I took a 2-year break, I still have over a whopping 1,000 hours. I've put blood, sweat, and tears into fighting games, and I'm still loving this genre as if I first discovered it. So here comes my surprise when I came into the FGC after playing the genre casually for years and finding out how divided video game fans are about the genre. So here are the complaints I've heard for years about why people don't like fighting games from those who either dropped the genre or just haven't played it at all. I know fighting game content creators have already made videos on this, but I just wanted to try out my hand in making a video myself and giving my opinions about the topic. I'll have to agree with this statement. Fighting game has a hard time keeping the attention of their players. However, I don't think it's because it's boring. Rather, the lack of content makes it hard for normal gamers to come back to play the genre after trying it out once. Whereas other genres such as RPGs have post-game content, or FPS games that have both story mode and various game modes, most fighting games struggle to keep up in this department. The most common game modes that are in fighting games are Story, Arcade, Survival, Versus, Online, and Training mode. 6 different modes sounds good on paper, but the execution isn't so great. All these modes have the same thing in common: you fight the opponent until the HP drops to 0. Let me slow down a bit and explain what I'm trying to say. Let's start with Story mode. In older fighting games, the story of each character was usually the reward you get after playing Arcade mode. But in modern fighting games, they actually decided to create their own mode specifically for this reason. It sounds good on paper, but the execution that most fighting games use are questionable at best. Fighting games like Guilty Gear and BlazBlue opt to have visual novel-esque or cutscene story modes. What this means is that most of the time the player isn't actually playing the game, they're just reading and watching what's happening on screen. Sure, you might be able to play 1 or 2 matches in between, but that's not really engaging enough to keep players invested. At the end, the player just sits down for 5 to 10 hours watching or reading something they probably didn't care about as much since they couldn't really interact with the characters as much as they wanted to. Next we move on to both Arcade and Survival mode. Arcade mode has you go against different CPU opponents for a certain amount of stages. As you progress, the CPU difficulty increases, making it harder to go against. Meanwhile, Survival mode is exactly what it means. The goal is to survive as long as possible. There's no end to the CPUs in this mode, and to top it all off, you don't regain all your HP. The problem with these 2 modes is that the only thing that really matters is defeating the CPU. There really isn't more than that. Okay, so you played through the story mode, you played your fair share of Arcade and Survival mode, and now you decide to play either Versus mode or Online. What can these modes provide that the others don't? Truthfully, they don't provide anything else that the other modes don't. The only difference is that instead of fighting against the CPU, you're fighting against a real person. Now don't get me wrong, these modes are amazing and must have for fighting games. However, there's no variety or interesting ways to play these modes, so they get tiring after a while. All that stuff is training mode, and guess what? Casual have no use for this mode. They're playing to have fun, not to get better. They're mostly going to use this mode to find out what characters they like, and once they've done that, they're probably never going to use it again. The content in all these modes are lackluster at best. They don't really give you anything as a reward except for a good job you win, and this is definitely a problem. Let's say you don't care about the single player content for the moment. You're a guy who's just interested in seeing what fighting games are about, and you play somebody in versus or online mode and their experience in playing fighting games. They absolutely just wash you with multiple sets, and you just feel like you can't beat them. You feel like you just can't put in the same amount of effort because you have to balance life, work, and just general responsibilities. Casuals looking from the outside of the FGC think that you have to be good at fighting games to enjoy fighting games, but that's not true. If that was the case, I don't think fighting games would even be popular like it is now. The reason why people take the time to improve at fighting games is because they enjoy them so much. Listen, nobody improves at a new hobby or skill overnight. There are still fighting game professionals that work day jobs. The best way to have fun playing a fighting game is just to find somebody on your own skill level, instead of finding somebody who's way better. If you could do that, you will definitely find yourself enjoying the game more. Get used to being comfortable playing the genre first, and then you can start with tackling the harder challenges. One of the most common fighting game complaints is that they are too hard. And that's because fighting games do something that other genres really don't do. When people usually see fighting games, they see a lot of cool combos and flashing lights, and people want to see that when they play the game. However, all these stuff are locked behind motion inputs. Motion inputs are a staple in fighting games, but to a newcomer, this concept is very foreign to them. And although motion inputs aren't hard, fighting games do a bad job explaining on how to do them. The most a fighting game gives you is a picture on the input and which way to move the analog stick. However, that's not enough. I think a fighting game should go out of its way to show you a visual aid on how to do these inputs. Motion inputs aren't hard, but poor explanation makes it look harder than it really is. It's also the fact that the movement options in fighting games give you benefits that the game doesn't tell you. For example, backdash allowing you to become invulnerable for a few frames, or air dashes changing your air momentum, or even unique options like wave dashing in Tekken that allows you to crouch dash, which allows you to dodge certain attack while moving closer to the opponent. With its unique mechanics, take your time to learn fighting game inputs and movement. In due time, it will become muscle memory. You guys have probably seen multiple clips of casuals getting upset or rage quitting after losing a match.
You're gonna learn! This is the real world! You learn it early, son!
That's all you ever do in your house? I'm done playing now.
Finish him!
You're a freaking jerk! All you keep doing is that. That's freaking not fair! That's all you're gonna do!
And this is a common event outside of fighting games. So what makes it so different here? Whereas FPS and MOBAs have teammates who you can blame for not pulling their weight, or opponents you get accused of cheating, the same can be done for fighting games. If you get hit with a 50-hit combo for committing too hard, that's honestly your fault. But then again, a casual person doesn't know what's right or wrong. They're forced to accept that their fill is nothing but their own, and that gives off a negative gaming experience to a lot of people. There's also the fact that when you don't know how to play a video game and you get beat down by somebody, it doesn't feel like you're playing the game. And to top it all off, the game goes out of its way to tell you that you lose. This could definitely be a motivational killer for some. Imagine getting on the game to have fun, running into a skilled player, and losing well and a chance to fight back, and the game rubs it in your face telling you that you just caught an L. That would definitely rub a lot of people in the wrong way. Fighting games are competitive by nature and it's not really its fault. The problem is that they don't give the player who loses any motivation to pick themselves up after losing and continue into practice. Fighting games no doubt have their fair share of problems, but the genre isn't all doom and gloom. Modern fighting games are finally breaking the mold that has been plaguing it for so long. Street Fighter 6 has taken single player content in fighting games to new heights with its character customizer and world tour mode that acts more than just a story mode, giving the players a chance to traverse Metro City and train with the World Warriors. There's also Final Fantasy vs Rising, which is actually getting its own Fall Guys mode. I don't think that was a sentence I would ever say in my entire life. Heck, fighting games are as accessible as they can be with how easy they are now. Some games even have easy inputs for new players to use. The Afro Benching, Grappling Fantasy Versus, and DNF Duel have these options to press one button and one direction to give you simple special moves, similar to Smash Brothers. And with Riot's new Project L game on the way, who knows how far fighting games could go now. I think it's safe to say the new generation of fighting games are going to do well for themselves, and if they keep at the pace they're heading, I personally think this is where the genre is going to pick up the most fans it had in a very long time.